They said my laundry line was unsightly and a violation of neighborhood standards, so I did what any petty, rule-following artist would do, ... I painted every sheet into a masterpiece. I invited the press. I sold tickets. And suddenly, my clothesline became the most talked about attraction in town. Now they're the ones who can't wash the stains off their reputation. When 34-year-old Mia, a divorced artist and single mother, hangs a laundry line in her backyard to save money and reduce energy use, her snooty HOA slaps her with a warning and then a fine. But when Mia discovers a clause in the HOA charter that allows decorative outdoor installations with no size restriction, she turns our laundry line into a rotating art exhibit featuring hand-painted sheets, poetry banners, and community art. What starts as petty revenge soon becomes a national sensation, with her backyard gallery attracting visitors, news crews, and even a museum offer. The HOA's attempt to shut her down backfires spectacularly, forcing them into the most humiliating apology in the neighborhood's history. The first time Mia ever heard from the HOA, it wasn't a friendly welcome basket or an invitation to a community potluck. It was a letter, a thick, overly formal envelope tucked neatly into her mailbox with a waxy seal that felt far too dramatic for a suburban housing committee. The letterhead read, "Winding Ridge, Estates Homeowners Association." Mia raised an eyebrow. She had only moved in 2 months prior, a fixer-upper, the kind of place with potential according to her real estate agent. She'd scraped her savings to buy it after the divorce, needing something small, manageable, and above all she stood in her kitchen, holding the letter with one hand and a mug of cheap coffee in the other. Liam, her 10-year-old son, was upstairs doing a math worksheet. Outside, the late spring sun beamed down on their modest backyard, where 3 white sheets and a pair of jeans danced in the breeze on a clothesline she'd installed the previous weekend. Violation 3.14. Unauthorized exterior utility structures. That was the subject line of the letter. Mia read on. Per Winding Ridge HOA regulations, no exterior drying apparatuses or visible laundry lines may be erected in public view. Your recent installation of a clothesline constitutes a violation. You are hereby fined $200, payable within 30 days. Further non-compliance may result in additional penalties. She blinked, then she read it again. A clothesline, a literal rope between 2 wooden poles, tucked behind a row of hedges. She looked out the window. The sheets billowed peacefully. She'd spent an afternoon sanding those poles, digging the post holes by hand, running the nylon rope just tight enough. It wasn't some janky wire strung between trees. It was tidy. It was neat. And most importantly, it saved her $50 a month on dryer electricity. Mia exhaled sharply and grabbed her phone. She dialed a number listed on the left. Winding Ridge, HOA. This is Karen. Of course it is, Mia thought. Hi, yes, my name is Mia Carter. I just received a notice saying I was fined for having a clothesline. Yes, Karen interrupted. You received a courtesy warning last week. This is the formal fine. A courtesy what? I didn't get anything. No one told me. It was placed on your door in a yellow envelope. Mia had seen no such envelope. I'm sorry, but this seems ridiculous. It's just a clothesline. It's in the backyard, not even visible from the street unless you're snooping. Well, one of our compliance officers conducted a visibility survey. The line can be seen from Lot 16's second-story window. Mia nearly laughed. So someone looked out their window and saw my laundry. That's ... enough for a fine. Karen's voice hardened. Ma'am, it's in the Bible. If you'd like to contest it, you may attend the monthly HOA hearing. The next one is in 3 weeks. Mia hung up before she said something she'd regret. That night over dinner, she explained it to Liam. He was quiet, thoughtful, in the way kids are when they know something isn't fair. But didn't he have the words yet? Why don't they want people to hang laundry? Because it looks messy, apparently, Mia replied. Or maybe because they don't want people remembering that not everyone owns a shiny dryer. But that doesn't make sense. It's just clothes. Everyone wears clothes. Mia smiled at him. You're already smarter than half the HOA board. He giggled and went back to his spaghetti. Mia didn't take the clothesline down. Instead, she started reading the Winding Ridge Estates HOA handbook, all 42 pages of it. At first it was just to see what else she could be fined for. But by page 17, something caught her eye. Section 7.2. Outdoor decorative installations. Residents may install temporary or permanent decorative items in their backyard, so long as they do not pose safety hazards or obstruct neighboring properties' views. That got her thinking. There was no mention of size. No mention of color. No limit on how many. She opened a fresh notebook and wrote 3 words. Laundry as art. Over the next week, Mia took down the white sheets and replaced them with blank canvas ones. She stayed up after Liam went to bed, using old brushes and leftover paint to turn each one into something new. A watercolor skyline, a stormy ocean, a pair of enormous eyes staring straight ahead. She added poetry to one, stitched fabric birds onto another. By Saturday, her backyard looked less like a laundry setup and more like an open-air gallery. The neighbors started noticing. One jogger stopped mid-run to take a photo. A woman walking her dog complimented the bold choices. Karen called again Monday. We need to speak about your repeated violations. Oh, I took down the laundry, Mia said sweetly. But you have new things up. Oh yes. Decorative art installations. Section 7.2. Want me to email you a photo? There was a pause. The board will review. You do that, Mia said, already planning the next piece. She had more sheets, more paint, and a lot more to say. This wasn't over. It had only just begun. The next morning, Mia woke up to a strange sound, not from the television or a passing car, but from outside her window. Curious, she pushed back the curtain and looked out into her backyard. 3 neighborhood kids were skipping through her painted laundry sheets like they were pieces of a magical forest. One of the younger girls was spinning with her arms stretched out, pretending the canvas with the swirling storm clouds was a portal. Another kid traced a hand across the birds Mia had sewn into the fabric. Mia blinked the sleep from her eyes and cracked a smile. Instead of marching outside to chase them off, she made a quick batch of lemonade, threw on a hoodie, and joined them. You kids like art? She asked, stepping onto the porch. The smallest girl brown pigtails and grasping knees. That one looks like it could fly away, she said, pointing to the bird piece. Well, Mia said, want to make your own? Later that day, Mia found herself in the middle of an impromptu workshop. She hauled out a crate of old pillowcases and bed, along with some cheap acrylics, leftover brushes, and a bag of random buttons and glitter Liam had stashed in a drawer. She set up folding tables and invited any passing kid to join. Word spread quickly. Within an hour, a dozen children were painting everything from tie-dye suns to parents showed up just to watch, and one even brought cookies. By sunset, 6 new painted panels joined Mia's originals on the clothesline. A rainbow-colored burst of creativity waving proudly in the breeze. One of them had a bold slogan painted in red. Color is not a crime. Mia didn't plan it, but something beautiful was happening. That night she posted pictures on Instagram and Facebook, tagging them with #backyardgallery and #laundryasart. She didn't expect much, maybe a few likes from old college friends. By morning, the post had over 400 reactions and a couple dozen comments. 2 messages came in from strangers asking when the installation would be open to the public. Mia was stunned. Karen arrived in person this time, mid-morning, clipboard in hand, hair shellacked into the kind of helmet only HOA board presidents seemed to favor. She didn't bother with a greeting. Miss Carter, this display is becoming a distraction, Karen declared. We've had a complaint about foot traffic, strangers loitering. It's becoming a liability. From who? Mia asked innocently, already knowing the answer. That information is confidential. Of course it is, Mia said, hiding her smirk. Karen tapped her pen on the clipboard. This is not what the neighborhood is for. Mia turned and gestured toward a new sheet she had strung up the night before. Painted in bold, rebellious red were the words, "Art is for everyone." I think the neighborhood disagrees, she said. Karen huffed. We'll be taking this up with the board. Wonderful, Mia replied. I'll prepare some fresh lemonade. That evening, a new name popped up in her inbox. Rachel Kim. Rachel ran a local arts and culture blog called Canvas County, and she wanted to interview Mia for a feature. I saw your #backyard gallery online, she wrote. Would you be open to talking about how this all started? Absolutely. Mia typed back. Rachel showed up the next day with a camera, a notebook, and the kind of curiosity only true creatives have. She snapped photos of the artwork, interviewed Mia, and even spoke to Liam, who proudly showed off his tie-dye sheet featuring a dragon breathing glitter. Rachel asked, what do you hope comes of this? Mia thought for a moment. I want people to know you don't have to sit quietly while a board of strangers tells you how to live. You can hang your truth out to dry literally and turn a fine into something beautiful. The blog post went live on Friday with the headline, From Fine to Fabulous, How One Suburban Mom Turned an HOA violation into the coolest outdoor art space in town. The story spread fast, People started sharing the post. Neighbors, then friends of neighbors, then local news outlets. A city council member left a comment thanking Mia for adding cultural value to the community. By Monday, she had 6 new emails from local artists, asking if they could contribute. And just when she thought things might settle down, another letter arrived in her mailbox. This one was more serious looking than the first. Thick red letters at the top, cease and desist. According to the HOA, her so-called installations constituted a breach of property use and were causing unpermitted public gatherings. She had 7 days to remove all fabric from her backyard or face escalating penalties. Mia marched a letter across the street to her neighbor James, a retired civil liberties attorney who'd been quietly cheering her on since the first clothesline appeared. James read the letter, chuckled, and poured himself a whiskey. They can't stop you unless they amend the bylaws, he explained. And to do that, they'd need a 2/3 majority vote from the homeowners. Mia's heart lifted, and from what I've heard, James added, half the block has started drying their laundry outside now. You may have started a fashion statement. He paused. Would you like me to be your legal advisor? Pro bono, of course. You're kidding, Mia said, blinking. Nope. And for the record, I paint too. Been thinking about contributing a piece. Mia grinned. What kind of art? Sharpie portraits of people I don't like. James did. And just like that, the neighborhood rebellion gained a legal department and a surprising new artist. By the time the next HOA meeting rolled around, Mia had unintentionally become a local legend. Her backyard gallery now featured over 20 hand-painted sheets, pillowcases, flags, and even an old bedsheet someone had turned into a mural of cats wearing sunglasses. There were subtle political messages, abstract splashes of joy, and one sheet that simply said, "Laundry is freedom." Liam had started referring to their backyard as the museum, and neighborhood kids were giving impromptu tours to curious adults. Artists from the next town over were reaching out. A school teacher asked if she could bring her class by for a living art field trip, and that's when the HOA decided to stop playing nice. The envelope was thicker than before. It wasn't just a cessandazist, it was an official notice of violation review. The wording was more aggressive, the font more serious, and the fines had increased. According to the latest notice, Mia now owed $1,250 in escalating penalties for unauthorized artistic modifications and community disturbance without a permit. They're treating me like I threw a rave, Mia muttered, tossing the letter onto the table. James, sipping his coffee at her kitchen counter, squinted at the document. They're trying to intimidate you, he said, but they still haven't amended the bylaws. They're bluffing. Still, if they go further, we might want to get ahead of them. You mean, maybe, but let's wait. Attend the next board meeting. Bring the crowd. They want to keep things quiet. Let's make it loud. The board meeting was held in the Winding Ridge community center, a beige, windowless building that smelled like air freshener and authority. Mia arrived 5 minutes early with Liam by her side and James just behind her. She expected a couple neighbors to show up and support. She did not expect 30. The room filled up fast. Parents, teenagers, elderly couples, even the guy who always walked his cat on a leash came. One of the sheets had been converted into a banner, now held aloft by 2 neighborhood kids. We are not violations. The board looked stunned. Karen, at the center, pursed her lips so tightly, she could have cracked a walnut with them. Mia stepped up to the microphone. My name is Mia Carter. I live at 109 Winding Ridge Lane. You find me for hanging a clothesline, then for painting on those clothes, then for people appreciating them. But nothing I've done violates your own bylaw. Section 7.2 explicitly allows decorative installations. And now, half the community has to. Murmurs of agreement spread through the room. I'm not here to start a war, Mia continued. I'm here because I love this neighborhood, but I am not going to let you fine me into silence. Because my art doesn't fit your beige aesthetic. Karen leaned into her mic. This is not about art. This is about order. This is about maintaining property values and community standards. Mia raised an eyebrow. Then why are more homes selling in this neighborhood now than last year? Why did a real estate blog feature our block as a hidden creative gem last week? Karen looked like she'd swallowed a lemon. One of the board members, Greg, a soft-spoken retiree, who usually nodded at everything, Karen said, cleared his throat. I've visited the gallery with my granddaughter. She painted a frog. It was ... nice. Karen shot him a glare, but Greg didn't look away. Maybe, he continued, we're fighting the wrong thing. The next day, The HOA sent Mia a new letter. The board has voted to temporarily suspend enforcement of fines related to backyard decorative expressions, pending further review. Mia pinned the letter on her fridge and wrote across the top with a red Sharpie. The following week, strange things began to happen. A city permit inspector showed up unannounced. Then a fire department vehicle rolled by to check for safety violations. Someone called in a complaint to Child Protective Services, claiming the sheets posed a choking hazard to children playing in the backyard. Mia knew what this was, harassment by proxy. The HOA couldn't win in the open, so they were trying to bury her in red tape. But Mia wasn't alone anymore. James drafted a formal harassment complaint. Rachel from the art blog started documenting everything. The parents of the kids who painted got organized and created a neighborhood art defense fund, which was mostly an excuse to host potlucks and sell cookies. But still it raised $1,200 in the first 2 weeks. And then came the anonymous letter. Typed, "No return address," delivered in an envelope with no stamp. It read, "You don't belong here. We'll make sure of it." Liam found it in the mailbox. Mia didn't sleep that night, but she also didn't back down. A week later, Mia returned from the grocery store to find 2 men in suits standing in her driveway. Not city officials. Not HOA board members. Something else. "Ms. Carter," one asked, flashing a card. "We're with the ACLU's regional office. Someone forwarded us your story. We're very interested." Mia blinked. "You're joking." The second man shook his head. "Not at all. There are limits to what HOAs can do, especially when it comes to expressive speech. You might have a case here, and if you're willing, we'd like to represent you." Mia stood there, holding 2 bags of frozen peas and a half-melted pint of ice cream. After everything, the fines, the intimidation, the whispers of not belonging, this was the first time someone with real legal power was offering to stand beside her. She nodded slowly. "I'm ready," she said. And the men smiled. "Good," one replied, "because things are about to get interesting." Mia stood in front of her closet, trying to figure out what someone wears to court when the battle is over laundry. Too stuffy a t-shirt that said "Let me hang." Too snarky. She settled on something in a flowy dress with a paint-splattered scarf and a gold pin Liam had made out of an old clothespin. As she looked in the mirror, Liam popped his head in. "You're gonna crush it," he said. Mia smiled. "You think so?" He nodded, full of confidence that only a 10-year-old could possess. "You beat a whole bunch of old people with laundry. That's like superhero stuff." The courtroom wasn't huge, but it felt massive under the weight of the moment. The HOA had brought a lawyer in a sharp suit and wire-rimmed glasses. He looked exactly like someone who charged by the minute and hated joy. Mia had the ACLU attorneys, James, in the audience, and about 2 dozen neighbors behind her, including Mrs. Alvarez, who brought her knitting, and little Emma, who wore a t-shirt that read, "My flamingo deserves freedom." The judge, a tired-looking woman with half-moon glasses, leaned forward. "So let me get this straight," she said. "The defendant is being fined for hanging sheets." Karen's lawyer stood up. "Your Honor, they were painted sheets, used as unsanctioned visual displays that encouraged loitering, gatherings, and community disruption." Mia's lawyer stood. "Your Honor, my client hung decorative art in her backyard. She broke no state laws, no city ordinances, and no clear age. The only thing she's guilty of is inspiring creativity." The judge raised an eyebrow. "And the total fines assessed to me. Karen's lawyer shuffled his papers. "As of today, $4,750. Gasps in the courtroom. Even the judge looked incredulous. "For art in a backyard." Karen stood suddenly, uninvited. "Your Honor, we run a respectable neighborhood. If everyone just did whatever they wanted, then maybe it would look a little less like a parking lot for beige Legos." James muttered from the back. Mia's lawyer smirked. "We'd like to file a counterclaim, Your Honor, on the grounds of harassment, targeted enforcement, and emotional distress. My client has received anonymous threats, unannounced inspections, and letters with escalating penalties over an issue that, legally, doesn't exist." The judge held up a hand. "I've heard enough." She turned to Karen. "You may not like art, Mrs. Jensen, but dislike is not a legal argument. You have no valid basis for these fines. You have failed to amend your bylaws appropriately, failed to provide due process, and quite frankly, have wasted this court's time." She looked at Mia. "Ms. Carter, you are not required to pay a dime of these fines. In fact," she paused, flipping through the counterclaim file, "you are owed damages, I am ordering the HOA to pay you $3,000 for legal costs, emotional distress, and as a warning to not abuse their authority. Karen opened her mouth in protest, but the judge added, "One more word, and I'll have you fined for contempt." Karen sat down hard that night. The neighborhood threw a block party. They called it laundry night. Mia's backyard turned into an outdoor gallery under string lights. People brought snacks, folding chairs, and new sheets to paint. Even Greg from the board brought a bedsheet with a giant peace sign painted on it surrounded by tiny ducks. James performed a dramatic reading of the HOA cease and desist letter like it was Shakespeare. Liam got up on a makeshift stage and shouted, "My mum's art is awesome," before dropping the McLeeturl into a bowl of guacamole. Rachel live-streamed the whole thing. The video went viral again. And Karen, she stayed inside. Her lights were off, but by the next morning, her lawn had something new on it. A bright pink flamingo holding a tiny sign that read, "I support free expression." Nobody ever confessed to putting it there, but no one took it down either. Epilogue. The colors stay months past. Mia didn't become famous or rich, but she did become something better respected. She joined the Neighborhood Arts Council. The HOA revised their bylaws to allow backyard decorative expression with community support. A new neighborhood kid, inspired by Liam's dragon sheet, started drawing comics that won a statewide art contest. Mia's backyard gallery still existed. It rotated with the seasons, now sometimes laundry, sometimes murals, sometimes just handprints of every kid who had ever painted there. The backyard that was once a violation became a landmark, a quiet rebellion made visible. And somewhere in the back, still fluttering in the wind, was the sheet that started it all. Art is not a crime.